Hi everyone and welcome back to Brainbox Unleashed. In this video we'll be continuing on with the third chapter, which is the story of Indian democracy from the book Social Change and Development in India. In the first part of this chapter we've done the meaning and definition of democracy, the different types of democracy, a little bit about the Constituent Assembly and how the Indian Constitution was framed, and also a little bit about the preamble which is there in the Indian Constitution. And if you've missed that video and would want to watch it, you can click on the link appearing on the upper right hand corner of your screen, or you can click on the I icon. So let us begin with today's lesson. We will begin with understanding the different competing interests that are there in the Indian society and how the Constitution addresses these interests and the social changes accompanying them. The Indian society is plural and highly stratified with its multiple religions and cultures. We have different religions in the Indian society, right? We have different tribes, we have people of different languages, and so the impact that culture, religion, and caste have on the rich poor divide, on the urban rural divide, and the literate illiterate divide is varied. And we have groups that are different from each other, and their interests are also different from one another. For example, the people of the urban area might need a new central park in their area, whereas people in the rural areas might want a irrigation canal which will help them in agriculture, right? So the interests of the urban people and the interests of the rural people become different. Similarly, the same goes with the rich and the poor, the literate and the illiterate people, right? So we have different groups and they have competing interests, and these competing interests fight, they clamor with each other for the control of the state resources such as natural resources, subsidies, reservation, employment, scholarships, grants, opportunities, right? But in spite of there being different groups and them having different interests, they all agree with some basic objectives which are laid down in the Indian Constitution. Okay, and these objectives are considered to be just and fair by the different groups. For example, empowerment of the poor and the marginalized, poverty alleviation, ending of caste, and to treat all groups equally. So they all agree upon these basic objectives. Now, sometimes the competing interests do not always reflect a clear class divide. Okay, it's not always easy to separate and to say that there is a sharp distinction between the interests of different groups. For example, suppose there is a factory which emits toxic waste and it makes people sick and affects their lives badly. So the factory is shut down. But because of this shutdown, there is another group of people whose lives might be affected. And this group comprises of the people who work in that factory. And because of the shutdown, their lives, they have been rendered jobless. They no longer have jobs, right? So here the issue becomes more complex. Here the issue of life versus livelihood comes into the picture. Now, both are equally important, life as well as livelihood. One cannot exist without the other. It is one thing to have life, but another thing not to have any livelihood, right? In order to live our lives, we need to have some source, sort of a source from where we can earn our livelihood, from where we can earn our living. So the constitution makers, they were fully aware of this complexity and plurality which would arise, but even then they were very intent on securing social justice as a guarantee. They wanted social justice to prevail in the Indian society. Now let us look at constitutional norms and social justice. Before we proceed any further, we'll understand social justice a bit better. So social justice is when there is equal treatment of all the groups that are present in the society. Okay, so it means not giving preference to one group or few groups over the others. It means treating all the groups equally, and there is equal distribution of wealth opportunities among these groups. Okay, so that is what social justice means. There is a difference between law and justice. The essence of law is its force. Law is law because it carries the means to coerce or force obedience. The power of the state is behind it. Okay, behind law there is the power of state, of the police, of all the state machinery. Whereas the essence of justice is fairness. You cannot force somebody to give you justice. It has the sense of justice has to be there in the other person as well. The sense of fairness, the sense of justness has to be there in the other person as well. Only then justice can prevail. Now, the Indian Constitution is India's basic norm as well as the supreme law of the land, and all other laws that are made as per the procedures the Constitution prescribes. So any law that is made, it has to agree with the principles that have been mentioned in the Indian Constitution and cannot violate those principles. So if a law violates the principles, then the Supreme Court of India has the authority to declare that law null and void. It can declare the law to be invalid. Now we know that there is a hierarchy of courts in the Indian society, and these courts have also been created because it is mentioned in the Constitution. And these laws interpret the and these courts, they interpret the laws whenever there is a dispute. We have the district courts, then we have the high courts, and finally the Supreme Court of India. Now the Supreme Court is the highest court and the ultimate interpreter of the Indian Constitution. The Constitution is not just a ready reference of do's and don'ts for social justice. Okay, it has the potential for the meaning of social justice to be extended. Now, using the Constitution, social justice can be extended to many groups in order to help them. Now, there have been social movements that have helped the courts and authorities to interpret the contents of rights and principles while keeping in mind the modern understanding of social justice. Now, laws and courts, they are sites, they are places where competing views are debated. All the disputes are settled here, right? And the Constitution, it remains a means to channelize and civilize political power towards social welfare. The Constitution can be used by any political figure, any political power for the social welfare, for the common good of the people. For example, the Constitution, it also has the capacity to help people because it is based on norms of social justice. And for example, the directive principles on village panchayats, they were included in the Constitution as an amendment by the uh, K. Santhanam committee. Okay, and there were debates whether village panchayats should be there or not. But Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, because of his experience, he knew that even though village panchayats would be created, they would be used by the dominant groups in the society to, benefit themselves. It would not actually do good. But after 40 odd years, it became a constitutional imperative. It became a necessity after the 73rd Amendment in 1992, when the Panchayati Raj Institutions were established. Now let us understand Panchayati Raj. Panchayati Raj literally means governance or rule by 5 individuals. Panch, it means 5, right? So Panchayati Raj means governance by 5 individuals. Now the idea of Panchayati Raj is to ensure a functioning and vibrant democracy at the village or grassroots level. So they wanted to introduce Panchayati Raj so that democracy would exist even at the village level or the grassroots level, at the very lower level, and not just at the central level. Panchayati Raj was not an alien import to our country. We had Panchayati Raj even in the past. But in a society where there are sharp inequalities, democratic participation is hindered on grounds of gender, caste, and class. We had village panchayats in the past. They were mainly caste panchayats, and those panchayats were mainly dominated by the upper castes and by people who were influential in the society, and they were mainly male dominated. Now, when the constitution was being drafted, the panchayats did not find a mention in it. Although village panchayats was very dear to Gandhiji, Gandhiji wanted the concept of village panchayats to be there in India. He thought of villages to be self-sufficient units who would conduct their own affairs without any outside interference. So he was very in favor of them. But it was still not included in the constitution because, like we just learned a bit earlier, that Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, and he was the chairman of the drafting committee, right? And he said, because he had experience, and he said that these panchayats would mainly be used by the dominant groups in the society for their own benefit. So it was only in 1992 that grassroots democracy or decentralized governance was ushered in by the 73rd Constitutional Amendment. And this amendment or this act, it provided constitutional status to the Panchayati Raj institutions. The 73rd and 74th amendments to the constitution, it ensured that one-third of the seats would be reserved for women in all elected offices of local bodies in both the rural as well as the urban areas. One-third seats or 33% seats would be reserved for women. In some states now, we even have 50% of the seats being reserved for women. And out of these one-third seats, 17% seats would be reserved for women belonging to scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. Now this amendment is very important, it's very significant because for the first time it brought women into elected bodies and it gave them decision making powers which they didn't have earlier, right? Earlier only these local bodies, even if they existed, they were only male dominated. With this amendment, women got that power to make decisions. Now let us look at the three-tier system of the Panchayati Raj institutions. So the structure of the Panchayati Raj is like a pyramid, and at the base or the bottom of the pyramid you have the Gram Sabha. Now Gram Sabha, it consists of the entire body of people in a village. All the people that are there in the village, they comprise the Gram Sabha. And this Gram Sabha, it elects the local government, which is called the Gram Panchayat. Okay, and the Gram Sabha then charges this local government with specific responsibilities. Now the Gram Sabha it usually meets twice a year, and all these people meet up in order to have discussions and debates about the various developmental activities that have been going on, or the whatever activities or whatever schemes are being brought in by the Gram Panchayats. And it is done so because they want to ensure inclusion of the weaker sections that are there in the village in the decision making process. The 73rd Amendment provided a three-tier system of Panchayati Raj for all states having a population of over 20 lakhs. Now, this Panchayati Raj system will only be there in a state which will have a population of more than 20 lakhs. If it is below 20 lakhs, then there won't be any Panchayati Raj there. And it became compulsory that elections would happen after every 5 years. After every 5 years, elections would be conducted and new members would be elected to the offices. And it provided reservation of seats for the scheduled castes, for the scheduled tribes, and 33% of the seats would be reserved for women. It also constituted a district planning committee to prepare drafts and develop plans for the district as a whole. Let us now learn about the powers and responsibilities of the panchayats. So one of the responsibilities of the panchayats is to prepare plans and schemes for economic development in the villages, to promote schemes that will enhance social justice, to levy, collect and appropriate taxes, duties, tolls and fees, help in the devolution of governmental responsibilities, especially that of finances to local authorities. So they will have to implement their responsibilities, and usually that of finances, providing finances to local authorities. Now, other than these, they also have certain welfare responsibilities like maintenance of burning and burial grounds, recording statistics of births and deaths, how many births have been there, how many deaths have been there, then establishment of child welfare and maternity centers, control of cattle pounds, propagation of family planning, making the people aware of proper family planning, also promoting agricultural activities. The developmental activities of the panchayats include construction of roads, buildings, wells, tanks and schools. They also have to promote small cottage industries like, say, it could be pottery, it could be carpentry, anything, and also take care of minor irrigation works. Some government schemes like the Integrated Rural Development Program and Integrated Child Development Scheme, they are to be monitored by members of the panchayat. So these are the powers and responsibilities of the panchayats. The main income of the panchayats is from tax levied on property, profession, animals, vehicles, cess on land revenue and rentals. So the panchayats get their income from the taxes that have been put on the property, on houses, on people's professions, on animals, if the animals are being transported, bought or sold, then also from vehicles if they are purchased, or if maybe toll taxes, then taxes on land and rentals. The resources are further increased, their income is further increased by grants received through the Zilla Parishad or the Zilla Panchayat. Now, apart from the responsibilities we learned earlier, it is also compulsory for the panchayat offices to put up boards outside the offices, and those boards have to show the breakup of funds they received and how those funds have been utilized for the developmental activities of the villages. Now this was made compulsory so that people have the right to information to whatever the village panchayats are up to, so that people can see how the funds have been utilized and they can ask reasons of why such and such activity has not been done or why it has been done. Okay. Now Nyaya Panchayats have also been constituted in some states, and these Nyaya Panchayats, they have the authority to hear some petty, meaning small, civil and criminal cases. Now they can impose fines, but they cannot award a sentence, meaning they cannot put somebody in jail, but they can impose fines on those people, on whoever they find guilty. And these Nyaya Panchayats have been successful to a certain degree and have been effective in punishing men who harass women for dowry, people who ask dowry and also commit domestic violence against women. With this, we come to the end of today's video. I hope the topics have been made easier and you understand them better now. If you wish to leave me a feedback of some sort, you can leave a comment in the comment section. Thank you for watching. Bye bye and see you again in the next video.